Good afternoon, I'm Jeff. This is we're Sewer Tech Northwest. Today we're at property address 13931 Southeast Matilda Drive here in Milwaukee. We're located on the right side of the home, just behind the fence here. We have a 3-inch ABS cleanout as our point of access. I'm going to insert the camera and check the overall condition and serviceability of the sanitary sewer line. We'll introduce water to the line here in just a moment as we need it. Last time I was out here we had some debris buildup in the line. I think a spot that was a little further out that was in question as to what's going on with it. At that point it looked like we may have a small belly in the line. I think it was about 2 or 3 feet long. But there was some debris built up in the line. So we got it clean and we're just checking it out here to make sure we don't have an underlying issue out here that is in need of repair. Now we do have a lip here on this joint. That plastic there is peeled a little bit, but these joints are joined together by rubber furnicos. It's not glued, so you can have a lip there, although it is not ideal to have. It's not affecting things in a significant way. It's only about barely even a 1/4 of an inch there. And it's transitioned from ABS to 3034 PVC pipe. Now we're in cast iron. Looks like we've got some toilet paper or something in the line. We'll try and get that all flushed out of here. Alright, this is the particular spot here where we had seen a bit of debris build up. We still unfortunately do have some in here, even after it's been cleaned. We're going to try and get as much of this junk out of the way here as possible. Okay, so I'll try and do this again here. You can see how much junk my camera's shoveling along here. I'm trying to at least get it out of the way. As I reel back here, though, you can look to the side of the camera and see how much stuff is still sitting there in the pipe. That junk there is an inch tall. Now this almost looks like we've got more standing water here this time around than we did last time. I'd have to go back and review the video and compare it. But it looks like there is just a ton of junk still sitting in this particular spot. I don't know if it's a bunch of rust scale that kind of busted loose while they were jetting the line out. You can see all that stuff there. I've kind of moved enough water out of the way now. We have a little bit clearer picture. And at this point, it's difficult to tell. That for the most part, there does look like rust scale. And that will happen sometimes. Is over the years, the pipe will build up a scale on it, some rust and some other junk. And if you jet the line, you can start busting that stuff loose here. And that's kind of what we've got. Now the problem with that is you can see how jagged that is. It's also possible we could have a combination of things going on here. With the standing water in the way, it gives us a little bit of trouble here getting a good look at it. But it looks like you can see it's kind of rusty, flaky looking bits. But some of that is also a little chunkier. I mean, it almost looks like there could be, I don't think it's gravel. I really think it's just scale buildup. But there is a lot of junk sitting there in that spot. If you were to remove all of that, you'd have a very small amount of standing water left over, and a spot there with that. I mean, because of all that jagged junk sitting in the pipe there, you're just asking for stuff to collect in this particular area. So I'd have to now go back and review the other video here and see if any of this was visible, but this is why I hope the drain clean guys would re-scope afterwards to make sure that they've removed this. So this is the spot we really, for the most, I mean, we wanted it clean because there was debris buildup throughout, but this was one of those areas we wanted to be able to take a closer look at, make sure there's no underlying issues. As far as I can tell here, still, I'm not seeing any obvious perforations in the line here to think that that is something like gravel. A bunch of that is 100% guaranteed is rust scale. There's just a lot of it there and hard to tell. Sometimes you can have the bottom of a pipe open up and allow stuff from the ground to come into it. I'm not seeing any obvious signs that that's what's going on here, but we have enough junk sitting in the flow line there that it's making it very difficult to tell. All right, I just reviewed the video from the other day, and yeah, this actually looks worse right now than it did when I first scoped it. It's because all this stuff was, I think, just knocked loose from the pipe walls, but it's all piled up here and needs to be removed. This is now at much greater risk for a blockage now that it's been jetted than it was the first time around, because all this stuff was, at least for the most part, I just looked at the video there and I do not obviously see any of this stuff sitting in the flow line. There's also less standing water than the first time around. I mean, based on the last video I did here, if you actually get all this junk out of the pipe here, there's going to be very little standing water at all. You might have yeah, I think it was probably about a 3-foot section there, maybe slightly longer, but when I first cambered this thing, there was less standing water in it. I've shoveled a lot of that out of the way at this point. It's obviously more drained out now than it, because I've had the camera run back through there so many times to kind of open up a pathway. But on the way out, I saw a fair amount of debris collecting in the line. It's because of the scale was not removed. That's part of one of the issues with jetting old lines. You will get that, but you got to get it all out of the line there, or else you're making the situation worse. I would recommend calling the jet guys out here to get this sufficiently cleaned out, because there's also, just past that transition, you've got the concrete pipe, which is a larger diameter, and it's just kind of, it's all going to pile up right there just past that transition point. We're going to put some more water down the line here for just a moment to help flush it out, because I believe prior to this point here we did have a spot where there was some other toilet paper sitting in the line. I just want to make sure it's all cleaned out of there. Right, we just introduced some more water to the line here. We're going to let it drain out completely here before rolling back in. Alright, it's pretty much all drained out at this point here. Or as drained as it's going to get. Alright, so currently our standing water is sitting there between about 55 feet, I'm sorry, yeah, 55 feet and 60 feet here. Anyway, you can see this, it's likely starting to kind of pile up just past the transition here. If you look just right over the edge, you can see how that stuff is collecting. Well, need to get the jet guys out here and have them completely clean all this stuff out. I would highly recommend they re-scope before rolling out, just because this is the outcome of that, unfortunately. So anyway, you definitely want to re-scope here before kind of doing a final inspection on it, because like I said, I just watched the other video, and it actually looks like there's more standing water here now, and certainly more debris sitting in this particular area. If that all gets cleaned out of there, though, last time I was out, the belly at that point was looking fairly minimal, and that's why I didn't recommend to repair just a jet to clean the debris out of the line. So at this point, it's very difficult to even assess how much standing water is there because it's now full of debris. And it looks like we have the same issue going on right here as well. A whole bunch of scale buildup. And this spot, and that's why we had debris building up in the beginning, because of this stuff here. So, line needs to be rejetted and rescoped. Now this other spot here is basically from 30 feet to about 33 feet. There's a huge pile of it there. Both of those areas put the line at very high risk for debris buildup. That stuff is so heavy and jagged that it grabs everything coming down the line. Now we're going to go ahead and reel out here. And again, this spot right here, again, it's not ideal that it looks this way, but it's the only reason my camera's having a hard time here is because my camera is hanging to the right side of this pipe. The flow line there's almost no obstruction at all. So it's not that stuff couldn't hang up on it, but it's only going to be things that really should not be going down the pipe, like a big wad of something, paper towels or huge ball of toilet paper, things like that. Not a spot I'm terribly concerned about there at all. It's not ideal, but that is, in my opinion, absolutely not worth tearing the concrete up to correct that little tiny flip there.